Richard Morrison looked me straight in the eye across that conference table and said, "Family business stays in the family, Mac." The room went dead quiet, not the kind of quiet you get when someone's thinking, the kind you get when something breaks and everybody knows it can't be fixed. There were 12 people at that table. Project managers I'd trained, site supervisors who'd learned everything from me, my 2 senior engineers who'd been working under me for over a decade. Outside the window, I could hear a crane backing up. One of our projects getting ready for the morning pour inside. Nobody moved. They all just stared at their hands like the table had suddenly become fascinating. My name is Marcus Sullivan. Most people call me Mac. I'm 47 years old. And for 18 years, I built Morrison Construction from a 6-truck operation into the biggest defense contractor in Colorado. Not on paper, not with some fancy title, but in every way that actually mattered in this business. I should back up. I started at Morrison right out of community college. Had my engineering degree, but no experience, no connections. Richard Morrison ran a small concrete operation back then, 6 trucks, maybe 15 guys working mostly residential driveways and small commercial jobs. He hired me because I was cheap and because his regular foreman had just quit. I took the job because I needed work and because I thought I could help. I'd studied structural engineering, spent my weekends reading building codes and material specifications, nothing fancy. Just a guy who understood how concrete worked and where most construction companies bled money without knowing it. Morrison Construction was bleeding from everywhere. So I fixed it one problem at a time. I redesigned their concrete mix ratios in year 1, saved them 12% on materials cost. Built a quality control system from scratch in year 2, taught myself the testing protocols on my own time, landed our first municipal contract in year 3. By year 8, we had 35 trucks and were doing infrastructure work. By year 15, we had over 80 trucks, 2 concrete plants, and a Department of Defense contract worth $24 million a year building bunkers and reinforced structures at military installations across the Southwest. Richard gave me the chief engineer title around year 10. No equity, no ownership stake, just a title and a salary that hadn't changed much in 4 years, even as the company I was running had multiplied its revenue by 8. But here's the thing about working for a family business when you're not family. You're never really inside. You're the hired help. The guy who makes it all work so the real family can take credit at the holiday parties. I understood that for most of those 18 years. I told myself the work was enough. Then Richard's nephew Brady graduated with his MBA. Brady Morrison was 28, wore expensive suits, and had exactly 0 days of construction experience. What he had was Richard's last name and a head full of business school theories that had never been tested against actual concrete and rebar. He came in talking about operational efficiency and value-add propositions. Meanwhile, he couldn't read a structural drawing, couldn't tell you the difference between Type I and Type 3, Portland cement, had no idea why we used different aggregate sizes for different applications. I trained him anyway because that's what you do. For 14 months, I walked Brady through every system I'd built, every client relationship I developed, every innovation I designed over 18 years. He took notes and used words like synergistic in ways that made our site supervisors roll their eyes. I figured Richard was breaking him in gradually, and that eventually we'd have a conversation about the future structure. There was a conversation, just not the one I expected. Richard called an all-hands meeting on a Tuesday in February. I sat down expecting a quarterly review. Instead, Richard stood up, thanked everyone for a strong year, and announced that Brady would be taking over as Vice President of Engineering and assuming full operational control of all technical operations. No heads up, no conversation, not even a phone call the night before. I looked at Richard, he met my eyes for about 1 second, then looked toward the window. I asked what my role would be going forward. That's when he said it. Family business stays in the family, Mac. Always has, always will. I sat through the rest of that meeting for another 30 minutes. Smiled when it seemed appropriate. Shook Brady's hand at the end. Walked back to my office and closed the door. On my desk were the hard drives I'd kept for 18 years. 3 external drives with every technical drawing I'd ever created, every structural calculation, every materials innovation. I'd bought them with my own money, backed up my work on my own equipment because the company didn't have any real IT infrastructure when I started. All my designs, all my engineering solutions, none of it on a company server. I picked up the first drive and just held it. That evening, Rachel called from the hospital. She'd heard from someone at the office. She's a nurse, works long shifts, doesn't get involved in construction politics, but she knows me well enough to hear trouble in my voice even when I'm trying to hide it. She said she was sorry. I told her I wasn't going anywhere yet, that I needed to think about it. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already started thinking the moment I walked out of that conference room. I took 3 days off, told the office I was sick. Wasn't really a lie. I sat at my kitchen table with those hard drives and went through them file by file, not out of nostalgia, out of calculation. Here's what I found on day 2. Over the past 18 years, I'd developed 15 separate patentable innovations in concrete reinforcement and structural design. New ways to integrate rebar patterns for earthquake resistance. A proprietary concrete mix that cured 30% faster than standard formulations. A modular bunker design that could be assembled in half the time of traditional construction. Every single one of those patents was filed under my name. Not the company's name, my name. Because back when I developed them, Morrison was too small to have a legal department, and Richard had never thought to ask about intellectual property rights. His lawyer was a general practice guy who mostly did real estate deals. I pulled up the actual patent documents on my laptop. Copies I'd kept for my own records over the years. Read the filing information 3 times slowly. Then I looked at the DoD contracts we were currently working on. 3 separate projects, combined value $35 million, all of them specifying the use of Morrison proprietary construction methodologies. Except those methodologies weren't Morrison's. They were mine. Developed on my own time, patented under my own name, licensed informally to the company I thought I'd be working for forever. I closed the laptop and sat there with my coffee getting cold. I want to be clear about what happened next because it would be easy to make it sound more dramatic than it was. I didn't feel like some guy in a movie who just discovered a secret weapon. Mostly, I just felt tired. Tired and very clear. I'd spent 18 years building something for people who'd never see me as anything more than hired help. I'd acted in good faith every single day. Shared everything I created because it never occurred to me I'd need to protect myself. That wasn't naivety. That was trust. And trust, I was learning, is worth exactly what the other person decides it's worth. I thought about a conversation I'd had with Garrett Rodriguez at a defense industry conference 6 months back. Garrett owned Titan Industrial out of Phoenix. Built smart, hired smart, treated his people like people instead of overhead expenses. He'd made me an offer twice over the past few years. Nothing pushy, just a standing invitation. His last message was still in my email. Mac, offer still stands. We value experience here. Gray hair means expertise in our building. I called him that afternoon. We met 2 days later at a place outside Denver, a barbecue joint we'd eaten at after a conference presentation. No power plays, no corporate atmosphere, just good food and a straight conversation. Garrett was in his mid-50s, built like someone who'd poured concrete before he'd learned to manage budgets. He asked technical questions about structural load calculations, seismic retrofitting protocols, the differences between various admixture formulations. He didn't need me to explain the basics. The offer was $210,000 base salary, 12% equity stake, senior VP of engineering, and my name on every contract I worked on. Then he said something I'd never heard in 18 years at Morrison. Your patents stay yours, and if you've got proprietary processes we want to use, we'll license them from you. Fair rate, documented agreement. I drove home thinking about those hard drives sitting on my kitchen table. Rachel was waiting when I got back. We talked until after midnight. She'd seen this coming for months. She said, watched Richard treat me like expensive equipment instead of the guy who built his company. She said, Richard built a company. You built the company he has now. Those are different things. Then she said something that settled it for me. Cole's watching how this plays out, Mac. What kind of lesson do you want to teach him about standing up for yourself? I called Garrett back the next morning and told him I was in. We agreed on a start date 3 weeks out. I typed up my resignation letter that afternoon. 2 weeks notice, professional, clean, no editorializing. Before I submitted it, I did something else. I drafted 3 emails to the DoD procurement officers I'd worked with over the years. These were people I'd built relationships with, not company relationships. Personal ones based on delivering solid work on time and under budget. The emails were straightforward. I informed them I'd be transitioning out of Morrison Construction, that my last day would be in 2 weeks, and that going forward, they could reach me through Titan Industrial. I included Garrett's company information and noted that I'd be personally overseeing all structural engineering projects. I didn't badmouth Morrison, didn't get emotional, just informed them of a change in my contact information, which was my right, since those contracts listed me as the designated technical lead. In 2 of the 3 contracts, notifying procurement of my status change was actually required under the performance clause. I sent the emails, then walked down to Richard's office. He was on a call, held up one finger, finished his conversation. Then he leaned back in his chair like he was getting ready to deliver some kind of lecture. I put the letter on his desk. He read it in about 15 seconds. 2 weeks, he said, not a question, just a statement. I confirmed he asked where I was going. I told him Titan Industrial. His expression changed. Not anger exactly, more like someone who just realized they'd left something important unlocked. He asked if we could talk about restructuring my role, maybe some kind of consulting arrangement with Brady. I told him about the Titan offer. He said they were overpaying for someone my age. I said that was between me and them. Then he said something that told me exactly how he'd been thinking about the situation. He said, "I hope this won't affect the defense contracts." Those relationships took years to build. I looked at him for a moment. Those relationships were mine, Richard. The contracts specify my personal oversight. You might want to check the fine print. The next 2 weeks were strange. People who'd barely talked to me for years suddenly wanted to have lunch. Brady followed me around with a legal pad asking questions about everything. Load-bearing calculations, concrete curing protocols, the specific admixtures we used for different applications. I answered every question completely and professionally. If I was leaving clean, but there were things I didn't volunteer information about. Nobody asked me directly about the patent portfolio. Brady didn't understand that the Morrison proprietary methodologies referenced in our DoD contracts were actually innovations I'd developed and owned personally. To him, they were just part of the company's capabilities. On my last Friday, Brady asked if I'd set up transition calls with the DoD contacts so he could introduce himself. I told him I'd send him the contact information, which I did. Names, emails, office numbers, everything in the public contract files. What I didn't tell him was that those procurement officers had already heard from me 2 weeks earlier. They already had Titan's information. When Brady called on Monday and introduced himself as the new VP of Engineering, he'd be talking to people who were already wondering whether they needed to rethink their renewal strategies. I cleaned out my office Friday afternoon. The hard drives went in my bag first, then a photo of Cole at his college graduation. The kid had just finished his junior year at Colorado School of Mines, studying structural engineering, following in the old man's footsteps, but doing it right, getting his degree from a real school, building his own reputation. I walked out at 500 on Friday and didn't look back. Monday morning at Titan felt like stepping into a different world. People called me by my name instead of the engineer. When I made suggestions in meetings, they wrote them down and actually implemented them. I had a real office with a window facing the yard. Small things, but after 18 years of being treated like expensive overhead, I noticed. Garrett didn't hover. He checked in, asked good questions, then let me work. That was new too. We started integrating my structural innovations into Titan's project portfolio in week 3. Garrett's legal team handled the patent licensing exactly like he'd promised. Fair valuation formal agreements, my name on the paperwork. The first project was a military communications bunker in Nevada. Instead of the traditional 8-week construction timeline, we used my modular design system and finished in 4 weeks. The concrete cured faster, the rebar integration was stronger, and the whole structure cost 15% less to build than the old methods. The procurement officer called me directly to say it was the cleanest project delivery they'd seen in 5 years. Word gets around fast in the defense contracting world when someone actually delivers what they promise. Within 6 months, Titan's bid competitiveness had improved 22%. Our project completion times dropped. Quality metrics went up enough that Garrett included them in federal bid documentation for a DoD infrastructure contract covering the Southwest region. The same region Morrison had been working for the past several years. Both companies submitted bids. I knew Morrison's cost structure better than Brady did. Knew their profit margins, their material sourcing limitations, their weaknesses in specialized applications. I didn't use any of that information improperly. I just built the best bid I could with Titan's actual capabilities. And Titan's actual capabilities, now enhanced with proper engineering systems and patent-protected innovations, were genuinely superior. The federal contract went to Titan, $42 million over 4 years. The week after the award was announced, my phone rang. Denver area code I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Brady, 4-minute message asking if I'd consider consulting on a couple of projects. Some of the DoD contacts weren't responding well to him, and he was wondering if I'd help smooth things over. He said Richard didn't know he was calling. I called him back and told him I'd be happy to help in a formal consulting capacity. My current rate for external engineering consulting was $400 per hour, billed in 4-hour minimums with a 3-session retainer required up front. I could have a contract prepared within the week if he wanted to move forward. He said he'd think about it. He never called back. Richard called 4 times over the next month. I let every call go to voicemail. Each message was a variation of the same theme. Consulting opportunities, bringing my expertise back, substantial compensation, family relationships. The 4th message had an edge to it. He mentioned loyalty twice and made some reference to everything he'd done for me over the years. He said something about how I was being ungrateful, how family businesses were about more than just money. I sat with that for a day. Loyalty. 18 years of 6 a.m. start times and weekend site inspections, and federal compliance reviews that ran until 9 p.m. If that wasn't loyalty, I didn't know what the word meant, and if it was, then Richard had gotten 18 years of it without ever thinking he owed me anything in return. I called him back on a Sunday, he picked up on the second ring, started talking before I could say anything. The company, the restructuring, the board conversations, how much everything had changed since I left. How they were struggling with some of the technical aspects of the newer projects. How Brady was still learning the ropes. I waited until he stopped. Then I said, "Richard, you told me family business stays in the family. You were right about that." I finally went back to mine. I hung up. 3 months later, I heard through industry contacts that Morrison Construction had lost renewals on 2 more DoD projects totaling $28 million. Without the proprietary methodologies that were actually my patents, they couldn't deliver the same quality at competitive prices. They'd sold 60% of the company to a regional competitor to avoid bankruptcy. Richard retired. Brady took a position as a project manager with a commercial firm in Denver. Around that same time, Defense Industry Weekly ran a feature story about Titan's contract wins and the engineering innovations behind our success. My name in the headline, my photo in the print edition, detailed coverage of the patent portfolio and what it meant for military infrastructure development. The article talked about how traditional construction methods were being revolutionized by modular design principles and advanced concrete formulations. How one engineer's 18 years of innovation was changing the way the military built protective structures. For the first time in my career, someone was giving credit where credit was due. First time in 18 years, my name had appeared in print connected to work I'd actually done. Garrett framed a copy and put it on my desk without saying anything. I left it there. The recognition opened doors I didn't even know existed. Other defense contractors started calling, wanting to license my patents for their own projects. Engineering firms asked me to consult on complex structural problems. Universities invited me to speak at conferences about innovative concrete applications. I kept my day job at Titan, but the consulting work was lucrative enough that Rachel and I could finally stop worrying about Cole's tuition. The kid was thriving at Colorado School of Mines, maintaining a 3.8 GPA while working part-time in the university's materials testing lab. He'd call every couple weeks with questions about real-world applications of what he was learning in class. Those conversations meant more to me than any industry award could. Here was my son, learning the right way, building his own expertise from the ground up instead of expecting things to be handed to him. The opposite of Brady Morrison in every way that mattered. At the Western Defense Contractors Conference that fall, Titan Industrial was recognized for operational excellence and innovation in military infrastructure. Garrett spoke first, then introduced me as the architect behind the technical breakthroughs. I shook hands, answered questions, talked shop with people who understood what I was talking about. Cole was there. He'd driven over from school for the evening ceremony, stood next to me during the reception in his school jacket, looking like he might actually be proud of his old man. After the formal presentations, he pulled me aside. "Dad," he said, "I heard some guys talking about Morrison Construction going under. That's your old company, right?" I told him it was. He nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "From what you've told me about how they treated you, they deserved what they got. That was my son. Direct, honest, no patience for unfairness. I'd raised him right." The Industry magazine article was just the beginning. Over the next year, 3 major engineering journals published papers on my structural innovations. MIT invited me to give a guest lecture on earthquake-resistant design. The Patent and Trademark Office featured my modular bunker system in their annual innovation showcase, but the real satisfaction came from the work itself. At Titan, I wasn't just an employee anymore, I was a partner. When we landed new contracts, I got a percentage. When my patents generated licensing revenue, I kept most of it. When procurement officers called with technical questions, they asked for me by name. Garrett and I developed a good working relationship. He handled the business side. I handled the engineering. When we disagreed on something, we talked it through like adults. He never pulled rank, never reminded me who owned the company. He treated me like what I was. An expert in my field who deserved respect. The contrast with my years at Morrison couldn't have been sharper. Richard had seen me as overhead. Garrett saw me as an asset. Richard had taken credit for my innovations. Garrett put my name on everything I touched. Richard had promised me things he never delivered. Garrett documented everything we agreed on and followed through. Here's what I want to leave you with, because I've thought about this a lot in the 2 years since everything changed. I spent 18 years building something inside a structure that was never designed to see me as anything more than a useful tool, not because the work wasn't good. The work was excellent, but because the structure only recognized family, and I wasn't family, I'm not bitter about it. Being bitter would mean regretting the work, and I don't. those innovations were real. Those structures are still standing. You can be proud of something you built even if someone else put their name on the building, as long as you eventually figure out what's actually yours. If you've spent years running someone else's operation, building something for people who see you as overhead instead of equity, you probably know what I'm talking about. That slow realization that loyalty only flows one direction in certain rooms, so know what you actually own. Not what you've contributed to, not what you've been allowed to use. What's legally, documentably, provably yours. Your innovations, your relationships, your expertise, your name on the right line of the right document, document everything, date everything. Understand the difference between their property and your leverage. And when the time comes, don't leave angry, leave prepared. Last month, Cole graduated summa cum laude from Colorado School of Mines. Rachel and I sat in the front row watching him walk across that stage, knowing every dollar of his tuition had been paid with clean money. Money I'd earned with my own name on the contracts, my own patents generating the revenue, my own reputation opening the doors. After the ceremony, Cole came up to us in his cap and gown. "Thanks, Dad," he said, "for showing me how to do things the right way," then he grinned, "and for showing me what happens when people don't treat you right. That's my boy. He gets it. And when he starts his own career, he'll know from day one to keep track of what's his and what isn't. That's probably the best thing I can teach him. That's when everything changes."